there is a cottage industry, and doing everything you can to slam healthcare reform. That's fine. We've been living with that for the last 4 years. This all stems from the fact that a fact that I've always celebrated, which is that the law says that members of Congress and their staffs will go into the exchanges. Law didn't need to say that, but the law says that. And I think that's a good thing. It means we will eat our own cooking. We're not going to be insulated from this exchange, these exchanges that were set up by this law. If they're bad, we will suffer. If they're good, we'll reap the benefits. We're going to eat our own cooking. That's a good thing. If we hadn't done that, the same people who are complaining about it now would be saying, they didn't put themselves in the exchanges. We put ourselves in the exchanges. So we're going to leave the Federal Employee Health Benefit Program, which is a pretty good employer plan, just like people who work for GE or UBS or Pepperidge Farm get. And the question is, should the government, which currently pays a portion of my health insurance plan, I pay some, they pay some.
Just like a normal employer.
Just like any normal employer would. Should that benefit go away because I'm going into the exchange?
Right now I get my health insurance through my company. If I were to decide to join an exchange for a better rate, would my company be paying into that at a similar rate that they are now?
If you could convince your company to do that, I don't know why they would do that, but if you could convince your company to do that, you could do that. However, you would not be eligible for tax. If your employer helps you go into the exchange, you lose your eligibility for tax subsidies.
So
just as I lose my eligibility, now I make more money than would allow me to go to get tax subsidies, but you lose the ability to get tax subsidies if your employer helps you.
So just maybe going apples to apples with that specific Twitter conversation, it is going to be different for members of Congress than it is for the average Joe.
It's different in the sense that the average Joe, it's unusual for somebody who has a good employer-provided plan to go into the exchanges, right?
But effectively, there's not going to be much, maybe in the actual benefits you receive, but in how your benefits are paid for, there isn't going to be any difference than it is for you now.
You're right. That's exactly the way to put it. There will be no economic change, meaning I'm not going to have to pay more out of pocket or less out of pocket. I'll still make my contribution, but
versus an average person, though, let's say if they were, for whatever reason, forced into an exchange versus, as you're being forced into the exchange. If they were forced into that exchange, they wouldn't have the benefit of their employers paying part of that premium.
That is true, but if the employer, again, if they have an employer-provided plan, they've got the choice of staying in that employer-provided plan. I don't have that choice. I am forced to go into the exchange by the law, and that's fine. I've always supported that, but in your example, if they didn't like the deal they got in the exchange and they had an employer who provided a plan, like my employer does, they can just stay in the employer plan and get the employer contribution.
And remember, large employers are required to.
And large employers are required to provide a plan. So the difference between me and that person is they can choose to stay in their employer plan or go into the exchange. That's a perfectly legitimate choice. I can't choose. I'm going into the exchange. So what you can say to me is, okay, the money's a wash, and that's true. I'm not going to pay out of pocket more or less, but I'm also no longer going to have whatever is good and bad about the federal plan. I'm going to have whatever is good and bad about the exchange. I think that's a positive thing.